everybody. Welcome to another bite-sized training. Today we're going to talk about, or not talk about, percentages in private practice. And this is really important because it comes up a lot. Many of you are looking at taking on work with private practices as subcontractors, and for that reason you need to understand what the fees that you will be receiving are all about. But it's also important for private practice owners so that they too understand how to craft a fee that's going to work. So the first thing that I want to clarify is percentages are bad news. I don't think that you should be working with percentages, and here's why. I think there are people that are using percentages in private practice, like private practice owners, that don't understand the concept behind the percentage. And as a result of that, not understanding that rationale, they're not explaining it clearly to people who are applying to work with them as subcontractors. And as a result of that, they're simply saying, this is the percentage I'm going to give you. They're not explaining the rationale. What's happening is we're creating this kind of some confusion for our subcontractors around what the percentage is, what it reflects, what it actually means. And in the absence of that information, unfortunately, subcontractors do things like they think to themselves, oh, she doesn't think I'm worth this much, so she's only giving me this percentage. Or they say, I'm worth way more than 50%, and so I want 70%, and things like that. So it also creates this sense of entitlement. And it's nobody's fault. It's just because people have cottoned on to this idea of percentages and they're starting to use it, but not using it on a foundation or a basis of understanding clearly the thinking behind it. For that reason, I think that I'm on a bit of a mission to cancel percentages. I think that everybody should be on a flat rate. But let me tell you a couple of other things that might be helpful to you, because this does come up a lot. People asking about income splits. So let's be really clear. This is not an income split. If you are a subcontractor, it is not an income split. It is simply the money that the practice is paying you. It is not you giving your money to the practice. It is not the practice taking your money from you. That's not what this is about. The private practice you're subcontracting to is a business, okay? It is its own entity. It has its own business name. It has its clients. All the clients belong to that business. That business attracted all those clients with its marketing and everything else. That business has its own director or owner. That business has its own bank account. And that business got to a point where it had enough work to be able to put somebody on. And that person, hypothetically, let's just say, was you. Okay. Now, what's happening is that practice says, I'm going to pay you from the practice bank account. The practice bank account is paying you. There's no split. It's not taking your money. It's not stealing your money and then only giving you a little bit. It's nothing like that. It's the opposite. The practice is paying you. You are receiving money, okay? The hourly session rate is a rate that the practice charges, okay? It's not your rate. It's the rate that the practice charges. And the practice will give you some of the money from that. It's not going to give you all of the money from that, ever. It can't, or it would be out of business. It's going to give you some of the money. And it's up to the practice about, how much of that money it's going to give you. So maybe that practice is charging $150 a session, and they've decided that they're going to give you, X amount. That's you getting paid by them. It's not you, like if they're going to give you, say, $100, it's not you saying, oh, I keep 100 and they take $50. They're not taking, they're giving, right? You are getting that money from them, okay? We have to get this clear because there's so much confusion. Now, if you're a subcontractor, you might be then saying to yourself, well, what's a fair percentage? Well, I mean, ideally, it's fair is very, very subjective, okay? You have to figure out what you're happy to work for, and the practice needs to figure out what it's happy to pay, and hopefully the two will meet, okay? So the practice is going to say, oh, well, these are all my business expenses, and these are my overheads, and this, and this is what I'm including, and da 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 da, and this is what I'm giving them. And so for my practice, I'm happy to pay my subcontractors this amount. As a subcontractor, though, you're going to have to sit there and think, okay, well, what am I actually getting, you know, for my pay? Like, what am I getting for this pay? What am I getting for my $100? Like, I'm just using this as an example. And am I happy with taking home $100? Is that what I really want to be taking home? Considering I also have to pay tax out of that, and I have to set aside, hopefully you're all setting aside superannuation, set aside superannuation from that, etc., etc. So really, there's no such thing as a fair percentage, because as I said, it's very subjective. The best way to approach whether or not a percentage or a fee is right for you is for you to figure out how much you need, and then when you apply for the job, say to the practice owner, can you please tell me what the average session fee is for me that I will be taking home? Okay, don't talk to me in percentages. I need to know dollar amounts. Can you please come back to me with an average dollar amount? And I understand it might be different, for different things, but on average, like ballpark, what will I be bringing home for each client that I see in a dollar amount? When you have that dollar amount from the practice, you will then be able to make a decision about whether or not you want to work with them, when it comes to the money. If you're a private practice, you need to take into consideration, the pluses and the advantages and the benefits of having somebody work for you. So they're going to be, picking up the overflow, and hopefully they're good at retaining clients, and, you're not going to have to keep, heavy on the marketing, so you've got to keep filling them up. So for you, it's a lot of extra work. It's not just a matter of saying, well, I've hit 70% capacity, so Brooklyn said when I do that I need to recruit, so yeah, I'm going to go and recruit. No, you need to make sure that you've got your policies and your processes in place, but you also need to understand the money. You need to figure out how much is it adding to the expenses of your business to have another person on. Like, what are the added on costs of getting them added onto the website, of getting them included in the marketing, of extra admin for them, like extra reception. If they're going to work on a Saturday and you're not used to working on a Saturday, do you now have to pay someone to do reception and let clients in and out of the building and answer calls and do rebookings and take payments, and how much does that person cost on a Saturday, and all those kinds of things. So you have to really think very, very clearly about, what does my practice need, but also to cover expenses. But you're not here just to cover expenses. You need to make profit, right? And that's going to look different for all of you, but you need to also build in like what your profit margin is going to be, because you're running a business. So you have to build in your profit margin, and then you're going to have an idea of, okay, if I'm charging $150 a session, then on average I can afford to give somebody $100, and that will still leave me $50 per session, which will cover the $35 for the admin person on a Saturday morning and extra on costs, and still give me $10 extra in the bank for my own profit, or whatever it is. You want to talk with your accountant, not your bookkeeper. You want to talk with your accountant about the numbers, so that you can be really, really clear when you're recruiting for a subcontractor about, this is the fee that the business is offering. Not that the business can afford or anything like that. You're saying this is what's on offer here. And I would recommend that you have some kind of little bandwidth of maybe, $10 either way, so that you can accommodate somebody. Maybe you get someone who's got like this really amazing fit for your practice, and you really want to capture them. At least if you know that you've got that little bit of a buffer of the $5 or $10 to move in for a session fee, you can confidently and safely do that. Okay. But it's also important for you to understand as a practice owner that at no point are you taking money off one of your subcontractors. At no point are you keeping their money or anything like that. This is about the business and what the business needs. Okay. Um, so I hope that this helps demystify and helps clarify that, what is a fair percentage is going to be different for everybody. What percentages are offered will be different for every practice. If you're the practice owner, you need to understand the expenses and the profit margin that you need to be building into your session fees, so that you know exactly what you can afford to pay a subcontractor who's coming on. And if you're a subcontractor, go away and do your numbers, figure out what you want to work for in terms of an hourly session fee on average, because it will vary. Like sometimes you might be doing different types of work. But on average, you need to know what you're going to be putting in your pocket, because it's very important you understand that. Because think about it this way: if somebody says, "Oh, well, I give 50%," well, 50% of $80, if that practice is only charging $80 for the counselling and you're getting 50% of that, you're still only taking home $40, which is not enough for you to consider working for them, right? If a practice is charging $200 for a session fee and they're giving you 50%, well, 50% of 200 is a lot more than 50% of $40. That's why I'm saying forget about the percentages. Always ask. You need to know how much is going in your pocket, how much is coming into your bank account on your ING app, every Thursday. You need to understand those numbers in terms of dollar amounts, not percentages. So I hope that this was really, 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 really helpful. If you have questions about this, it is sensitive because we're talking about people's money, but not only that, we're talking about people's employment. So if you're currently subcontracting and you've got some questions and you don't feel comfortable airing them in the group, that's okay. Feel free to message me. Similarly, if you're a private practice owner and you are going through some difficult times, or you're going to be recruiting for a subcontractor, or you're looking at converting from percentages to flat fees and things like that, and again, because maybe some of your team are in our group, you don't feel comfortable sharing that, I totally get it. This is a very, very sensitive area, and you are more than welcome to send me a little message, and if I can help you, I will absolutely help you. The least I can do is point you in the right direction. So feel free to reach out if you're needing a little bit of help or support with this. But I hope that this was useful for you today, and I hope that it just clarifies a little bit about the confusion that's been happening around the issue of percentages in private practice for all of us. Okay, thanks for watching this bite-sized training. Bye.